He is a former Disney Imagineer.
Yes. I no longer have a mouse here, so.
You can still see them. So he's a futurist, a storyteller, an advocate for a better tomorrow. At Walt Disney, he was a writer and producer for the Magic Kingdom. I mean, who gets to say that, right? A writer and producer for the Magic Kingdom, for Epcot, for Animal Kingdom, and developed the first strategic foresight group within Disney. He's currently a principal of Unique Visions, which works to help clients imagineer their best futures, which is why he's here.
Anybody here anxious about the future? So a few years back, one of the popular topics that was written and talked about was this idea of digital natives and digital immigrants. I'm not a digital native, that's pretty obvious. Joshua is, right? As a futurist, I feel obligated, of course, to constantly be trying out all this new technology and getting that Alexa and wondering what it's really spying on me about and things like that. And so recently I've taken to putting my notes on my iPad, and so I'm feeling the anxiety that goes with that, because just the other day I was speaking to a group and I sat down and started to talk, and of course the damn machine locked up and speaking. And that, I think, is a very small example of what all of us experience every day in the world that we live in today. Because as the article from the earlier meeting was, right, this is the most challenging century in human history. And I think we all suffer that, whether we acknowledge it or not. And in fact, 50 years ago, one of the greatest futurists, Alvin Toffler, identified what you're all experiencing. He gave it a name. He called it future shock. And future shock has some very real symptoms. And those symptoms are things like we tend to retreat from thinking about the future. We tend not to try out new things because we're simply afraid of them. And most importantly for me in the work that I do, it prohibits us from even imagining what the future might be. And I think that is the greatest threat that actually exists for all of us in terms of thinking about what the future is out there. So it is really easy to get overwhelmed. And the question in the work that I do is addressing how do we address those fears and understand them, and how we gain some of our agency in terms of creating the future. And for me, it comes down to one really sort of simple tool, and that is storytelling. Futurists really are telling stories about what is possible, what we want to avoid, what is practical in terms of the future. And I think if we think in terms of those stories, we really have the ability to get the kind of agency that we want to. And there are really two major elements for all stories. You gotta have great characters, and I know a lot of what you were going to be doing with Fiona and her team is about creating some of those characters and examining them for you in 2035. But the other part of it is you also have to think about what the setting is, because all great stories have some kind of interesting setting in it. And I think what Jason and Joshua have sort of given you is an insight into some of what those settings are. And so what I'm going to do is I want to take a few minutes and try to sort of talk about how we might understand that setting and with all the work that you're going to do. For me, there are three really major, what I call drivers that we need to be thinking about. The first one clearly is digital technology. And we all talk about it all the time because it's easy to see and understand. We can put our hands on it, and it affects our life completely. The second one, though, is one that Joshua kind of hinted at. And that is that we're in a moment of amazing demographic shift. We have more generations in the workforce than we ever have before, up to 5, some people suggest even 6. We have a huge shift overall in terms of the age of society. By 2050, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 5 globally. That has never happened before in the history of society. And all of us old people expect you young people to take care of us. So there are lots of things that are going on there. The other part of that demographics, of course, is the multiculturalism and the diversity that we're really finally starting to understand we have to address and deal with. And then the third thing is, for lack of a better term, climate chaos. You know, those are the three pillars that are going to determine any story that you create about the future. But the problem is, we're kind of like fish in water, right? We're living with this anxiety, we're living with the fear and struggling to get by day to day, but it's really hard to step out of all of that and try to begin to understand what it really might mean. And a lot of people in the world today believe that what that means is we can build anything, we've got that incredible ability. That's partially true. But what it really means is if you can't dream it first, you have no chance of creating your future. And I think that's the value that you're going to bring to this conversation in the next couple of days. So, thank you.